They're coming up with the content, the concepts, the creative approach. Nobody knows it better than they do. I don't care how savvy you are if you're 35 or 40 or 45. No, I'm not taking a punch at you, but these guys know it best. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds. So feel free to take the CEO. I didn't copyright it yet, okay? You've got it. But it's just the idea, it's the mindset, the mentality, as Antonio, you put in the book last year. Gen Zers are not looking for managers, they're looking for mentors, they're looking for collaboration, they're looking to be actually part of something that's really purposeful and that can deliver results, measurable results. So that's the first one of the day. They gave my background just to give a sense of why they had me up here and why, again, I have a little bit of credibility in this space. I have the pleasure each and every day of collaborating with about 150 Gen Zers at Rutgers University and Montclair State University. I get to live with these folks every day. I get to hear from them every day. They are my think tank. I teach them about marketing. They teach me about social media, trends, why they like this brand over that brand. It's a marketer's dream to be able to hang out with these guys all day, every day. And so that's what inspired me to go out and write the book. First, do all the research. Like I said, we spoke to everyone from 13 to 23-year-olds, from high school freshmen to those who just graduated college. So let's get into it, right? Let's find out what these guys are all about. So some of you may have come here kicking and screaming and saying, why am I here? And why am I sitting here at 10 a.m. listening to some guy talk about Gen Z? If this doesn't get you, then nothing else will. This year, Gen Z will become the largest consumer segment in the United States. 61 million. Well, shoot, if I'm a brand right now, I'm like, I've got to figure out what makes these folks tick. 61 million, the largest consumer segment. And if that doesn't get you excited and energized, well, all you got to do is go to the last line. A spending power in the 143, 150 billion. So some of you are saying, well, 8 and 9-year-olds don't have spending power. No, but they got a lot of influence on mom and dad. They're the ones who after soccer are saying, stop at Jersey Mike's and hey, let's get a sub. That's the influence they have. And the influence that individuals like Stephanie and Antonio and Sid have up here is even greater, because at 20, 21, 22, 23, they're the ones making those kind of decisions. They're the ones influencing their friends and, again, driving that spending power. So if that doesn't answer why I should tune in, why I should start to focus and prioritize Gen Z, you should leave now, because the rest of it won't matter. All right, just so we all have a sense. Gen Z, and again, it's not that important, but I know I always get the question, well, when was Gen Z born? So just throw out some answers out here. When was the first year we think Gen Z was born? Oh, you already looked at my slides. So I always say 95 to 2010, just to round it off, but Pew Research Center, which is, again, one of the leading experts in this space about a month ago, said they're going to designate 97. That doesn't mean if someone was born in 95 or 96, they're not Gen Z, right? They straddle that Millennial and Gen Z. But 97 to about 2010. But more importantly than that, what does Gen Z consist of? It is the recent college graduates like Steph and Antonio, who just graduated and are now working or will be working, right? It is the current college graduates like Sid who are in school. It's high school students, it's middle school students, it's elementary school students. So that's when we talk about Gen Z, that's what we're talking about. I wish I came up with this. I mean, I came up with CEO, but I didn't get laughs like that. But this says it all. This says it all. So I love using this. Gen Z is the first generation that swiped before they wiped. That one pithy quote from the CMO of MTV says it all. They had technology in their hands at the age of 1 or 2. Millennials can't even say that. I know Gen Alpha can say that, the next generation, because I've got, believe it or not, I've got 2 grandchildren in age 1. They've got more apps than I even know what to do with. But that kind of captures it. So as we went out and researched the book a year ago, and Antonio and I were doing a bunch of research, we boiled down to what we call these 6 degrees of Generation Z. as we just talked about from that slide before, digital natives and tech smart. Yes, they are on their phone a lot. These guys are nice enough to put their phones away for this session. They're on their phones a lot, but the question is, what are they doing on those phones? And we'll dive into that. Tech smart. I interviewed a 13-year-old high school student, a freshman from Baltimore, Thomas Sachs. This guy builds robots for fun. He said, you think I'm tech smart? Think about 7, 8, 9-year-olds when they become 13 or 14, 15. He goes, they're gonna blow me away. He goes, it's just amazing. So again, when we say tech smart, platforms, apps, things that maybe even older generations are scared of, right? You get an update on your phone, like, I don't want to see that update. You're gonna change something on the phone. It's gonna screw my whole day up. These guys created that, they want that, give me more updates, give me more apps. Entrepreneurial Spirit. There was a 14-year-old sophomore from a high school in New York, Sophie, who said, I've already launched my first business using a platform that I was able to, that I found, that I discovered. I'm selling jewelry around the world, homemade jewelry that I make. 14 years old. I was barely delivering newspapers at 14 years old. And she was so proud. Not of the fact that she was making a few dollars, but that she identified this global platform, had an idea for a business, and put it in play. It didn't matter whether she was making $1 or $100 or $1,000 or $1 million. It was the idea that she put her entrepreneurial spirit into play. Experience craving. We're going to get deep into this. Instagrammable experiences, Instagrammable moments. Everything is about the experience. Yes? Okay. Everything is about the experience, and we're going to get deep into that. It's a big part of marketing to Gen Z. It's not about traditional advertising and marketing. It's not going to resonate. Give them an experience they can share, participate in, and amplify. And the last two are community-minded and purpose-driven. If you are a brand, and you'll hear me say this more than once today, prioritize purpose over profits. I don't mean to go back to Jersey Mike's again. I don't even know if Jersey Mike's is here, but Jersey Mike's is one of the greatest things in the world. More than once, but one day a year they take every sale of every sub in every store across America and they donate that to charity. That's putting purpose over profits. That's going to cause Gen Z go back there again and again and again and again because they stand for something higher than just a sub above. And freshness. And so when we market and engage the Gen Z, we talk about these 5 priorities. Instagrammable experiences, Instagrammable moments, immediacy, right? You look at something like Venmo up there, I mean, Gen Z doesn't carry cash. They do all their transactions through Venmo. Yeah, you're old school, you're old school. Speed, personalization, brands who can allow Gen Z to not just to purchase their product, but personalize and customize it, and again, that idea of purpose. You guys just want to talk, Steph, Instagrammable experiences just for a moment?
I mean, I feel like everybody kind of knows that Instagram is the main platform right now. I don't know how many of you that raised your hand at the beginning and said you were Gen Z, how many of you use Facebook anymore, or really Twitter. I see some of you smirking a little bit.
That's the old one.
But Instagram is kind of like the big thing, and there are all these pop-ups and businesses that are coming up out of nowhere that are doing these really insane immersive experiences like 29 rooms and like Rose Mansion and like all these crazy things where they put you through this experience and they create this super fun thing where people are like, oh my God, where are you? And they're looking at your story and they're tracking where all the stuff is. And when 29 Rooms started, it's by Refinery 29, they did it, and now it's sold out in 6 different cities. It's sold out in 7 minutes. There are no more tickets in, I think, Dallas, LA, and I want to say Chicago, and then the other cities have yet to be like announced where it is, but they bought tickets already. And that's because the experience is so immersive, and that stories and posts kind of travel really far. It's kind of bigger than word of mouth in a way.
And it's interesting, great segue, by the way. Last week, Steph fielded a national survey of Gen Zers because we wanted to bring fresh data in here. 79% of Gen Zers say that unique experiences and events is the most effective way to engage and market to them. I love you brought up Refinery 29. This is a museum of ice cream or house of ice cream. But again, to your point, it's all those kind of interactive experiences that not only can you participate in, but you can brag about a little bit. You can share with your followers, right? You got a comment on that, Sid?
Well, for your class, I had the privilege of working with Garden State Wine Growers Association. And when you think about the average wine drinker, you think a person aged 30 to 55. But the director wanted to change the demographic to ages 21 to 30, which we were like, okay, so we're gonna create a festival for you, obviously, like what else would we do? And he's like, so like, what do I have to do for them? And I'm like, you need to create visually appealing rooms, a tent, something, because if I'm gonna go to an event, as soon as I book my ticket, you could catch me on any website. I'm looking at outfits, I'm planning what I'm gonna wear, I'm planning how I'm gonna pose for Instagram, and I'm already estimating how many likes I'm about to get. So, I mean, I can speak for probably these two as well, that they plan that as well. It's all about our experience, because then we're gonna post that and other people are gonna see that and they're gonna DM me, ask, where were you? How do I get a ticket? Where'd you get that outfit? So anything that I'm posting, like, I'm marketing your business just for my Instagram and you're not even paying me for it.
Antonio, you wanna add to that?
Yeah, and what I was gonna say is that Instagram gives you the ability to brand yourself. So you can go out there and you can post and you start to generate all this activity. People are saying, hey, what is she doing? Where's she going? Suddenly says, oh wow, you know, I saw Steph was at this event. Like, Steph's always going to these cool places. Like, Steph has the greatest outfits. All of a sudden, people are starting to follow, what is Stephanie doing? What is Stephanie wearing? Where's Stephanie going? And Stephanie begins to become an influencer herself. And you know, I have so many family members. They live in Philadelphia and Richmond, Virginia. And they took it upon themselves, I'm gonna start an Instagram page and discuss all these places I'm going in the city. And it started out, you know, 300 followers maybe. They're at a coffee shop here and there. And now my one cousin's up to 40,000 followers and this is her full-time job. And you know, Instagram gives you that power. It gives you that leverage above people to become an average person, a citizen in that city, to an influencer, and branding yourself and branding whoever that you're supporting too.
Yeah, please. I told them, by the way, no rules up here. Whatever they say, you want to listen to them anyway.
I think it's funny to think about how insane Instagram is right now. There are people literally charging $400, $500, up to like $3,000 for Instagram workshops on how to photograph, how to pose, how to get like half-price tickets, free hotels, and like that kind of thing. And it's insane to think that like you could tap into this and then not pay anything if you say the right things. Because people want to like market and take pictures and like show themselves in places, and like you can kind of like partner up with them.
So let's go into some stats, some numbers. You guys already gave the answer away to this one, right? What social media platform does Gen Z prefer over all others? I would probably say about a year and a half ago, I think Snapchat might have been in the lead. A year and a half ago or so, two years ago?
Snapchat's like not the wave anymore.
That is the baby filter.
Oh, the baby filter?
Baby filter, and a guy and a girl filter.
So let's talk about that. These numbers are even from a survey that Steph put into the market a year ago. These numbers have changed. Just last week when we did our data, and I thought I had the updated numbers, but Instagram was in the close to 60% preferred. Snapchat was around 20, and as they alluded to earlier, Facebook really has no place at all with Gen Z. It was sitting right around 6.5%, exactly where it was a year ago. And yes, Gen Z is on their phones all the time, but they're not lazily just staring there looking at videos and things. They're conducting business, they're producing content, they're sharing content, they're downloading content. And I thought this was just interesting because I know, again, we're talking about digital marketing here today, and we've got a lot of folks who are coming from digital agencies. So this was just stats that we borrowed from WP Engine. But as Gen Z looks to evolve their digital marketing experience or digital media presence, look at what they're talking about for 2020 and beyond, the kinds of things they want brands to introduce as part of technology, as part of apps, as part of engagement. Again, there's some things up there that obviously are out there now, that exist now, but they're craving more of this from, again, digital marketers. And then we always get the question about, well, what's the difference between millennials and Gen Zers? So I just like to put this up here. It's just the idea that you start to see a shift here a little bit. If you look at that even from a social media standpoint, right? 42% to 52%. So we're seeing that shift from traditional media is becoming a smaller and smaller part of their ecosystem. And obviously social media and digital media is becoming a bigger part. And of course, this varies from the oldest millennials to the youngest Gen Zers, right, on the spectrum. Can you just go back real quick before we go to the brands? Snapchat. Somebody go back. No, has Instagram become more and more popular because of Instagram stories, or has Snapchat, just talk about the way that Instagram in the last year has become more popular and Snapchat has become less popular? Because at one point Snapchat was the lead.
Well, because they had that issue that when Snapchat changed their platform, like Kylie Jenner tweeted, no one wanted Snapchat anymore, then no one wanted Snapchat anymore. And I hate to agree with the Kardashian, but I totally would agree. It's just because now I looked the other day, I posted a Snap story, and I never did. But I posted one, and I only had 100 views.
That's 100 views. The old people in the room I love when I get one person just to like my photo. And I only had 100 views. Continue.
But if I were to post something like a story on Instagram, I have 800 views. Yeah, I think we that.
So let's dive into a little bit Gen Z and brands. If you think about it, some of Gen Z's favorite brands were born exactly when Gen Z was, 1997 to 2010. Look at those brands. Gen Z cannot get enough of Netflix. I'll give it less than I'll give it less than 2 years and we will have advertising on Netflix. I promise you. But Gen Z cannot get enough of Netflix. But look at those, 97 to 2010. Instagram, Venmo, YouTube, which we'll talk about a lot today. So when you think about it, these are all Gen Z brands. They were born during the exact same time. These are brands that Gen Z gravitates towards. When I talk to Gen Z, when I have the chance to kind of hang out with these guys in class, and we do this often, right? I always pick their brains in class. So what's hot, what's trending, what's cool, what's not? And I pull this stuff together every day. And this isn't the only list of brands, but these are the brands they tell me, right? And a lot of us in this room, especially those who work for digital media agencies, something like Wendy's comes up all the time, right? Because Wendy's speaks to Gen Z. Wendy's speaks in the Gen Z voice. Why? Because Wendy's has a 24/7 manned Gen Z social media team that understands this generation, that speaks to this generation, and really goes back to that idea of speed, immediacy, and delivering content that these guys not only like, and will get 100 likes, but more importantly, they will advocate for and share, which is the holy grail of marketing, right? These guys talked about it a little bit earlier. When Sid plans and commits to going to, I'm going to make this up, to the Haskell at Monmouth Park in a couple of weeks, right?
I'm scared of horses.
Okay, Antonio. When Antonio commits to that,
I'll be there.
she is going to, on her own, advocate and share the brand she's wearing, the brand she's drinking, the brand she's enjoying that day, and no one's paying her $1 for it. There is no greater marketing, no greater influence than that kind of peer-to-peer application for a brand, right? So they become evangelists. This is part of, Steph, we went with this last week, so I do want to touch on this one, right? Just from a video content standpoint, this was last week's survey that you fielded nationally. How do you prefer to view video content weekly? Now, hopefully it's no surprise up there to anyone that we're not seeing ABC, CBS, Fox, right? 88% YouTube, 85% Netflix, and Hulu. Do you want to start, Steph? I do want to go through all three of you from a video content perspective. Why these, and also just from a video standpoint. I know we talk all the time about it's on your time, at your place, wherever and whenever you want.
I mean, I was really surprised when I saw this, specifically YouTube being in front of Netflix, but then when I kind of thought about it, YouTube lets you kind of watch videos for however long you have. So if you have 15 minutes or 3 minutes free during the day, you can watch a video, and that's why a lot of people prefer it. Netflix, obviously, you have to have at least half an hour or 20 minutes, but like those two are leading. I find it interesting how this data might change with how YouTube is changing and how, again, Instagram is taking over with IGTV and they're trying to like take over that market. But I mean, like me personally, I watch a lot of YouTube videos just because like in my day I don't have time to watch half an hour or like an hour of TV. So I'll watch like 15 minutes of a video, or I'll like download a video and watch it on my commute or something. And that's just easy for me. So I understand YouTube.
Antonia, do you want to build on that?
Yeah, what I found interesting recently, throughout my past 3 years living off campus at school, we never bought cable. We had maybe 5 TVs in our house. Not one of us had cable. And what it was is we just needed Wi-Fi. We had our Fire Stick. We had Netflix. We had Hulu. We were able to get YouTube through our Wi-Fi on our TV. And we thought, what do we need traditional television for anymore? And it grants us the ability, YouTube, right there, it's a search engine, and it'll give you whatever you want. And same with Netflix. I mean, the other day, someone was talking about the Jennifer Aniston, Adam Sandler movie, and I was like, I don't see it in the ticket box. Like, I don't think there's a new movie out. And everyone's like, it's a Netflix movie. So now, suddenly, everything that you want, you can find through these 3 platforms.
Sid, any more?
I think that YouTube's really cool because everyone has their own like little niche that they have. So like Steph loves makeup, so I'm sure she watches tons of makeup videos on YouTube. I watch a ton of dance videos. One time my dad was actually logged into my YouTube account and like I saw like random hunting videos like showing up. And I was like, who is on my account? But I definitely think YouTube's awesome because you're able just to watch it in your own time. Like I don't have time to sit down and watch an entire sports game. Like I did not watch the NBA finals, but like I can go the next day and just watch the highlights. Like that's fine. And Netflix is awesome because like they just have a lot more variety shows, I think, than Hulu. I have been watching Hulu recently because like Brooklyn Nine-Nine's on Hulu and like that's my thing now. But I actually started watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine because I watched a YouTube video and it was in it. So like I think they all like one and the same.
I think it was interesting you mentioned about the NBA Finals. The day after the Oscars, on that Monday, I taught 3 classes at Rutgers, 1 at Montclair. So I surveyed, let's just say about 150 to 175 students. How many of you watched the Oscars last night? Out of 156. I say shocking. The Oscars is, at one point, was must-see TV, right? Must-tune-in TV. And they all responded the same way that Sid did. Why would I waste 2 or 3 hours of my time? The next morning, all I'm going to do is get the highlights in bites, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. So again, it goes back to that idea of immediacy, efficiency on my time at my place. I know I can speak for the Rutgers students, you know, we get on those buses between College Ave and Livingston, we got like 20 minutes to kill. So we're watching probably videos and consuming content, listening to podcasts. Now, I talked about those are the brands they tell me, but that was kind of anecdotal. So I love Morning Consult, I love their data, but you'll start seeing a lot of those same logos up there again. So this was a comprehensive nationwide survey of Gen Zers in the past month or 2. And you see again, Netflix, you see YouTube, you see Target, who we're going to talk about, you see Instagram up there. So again, these are the brands Gen Z is saying, these are the brands they are saying are the brands that resonate with them, that get them, that they love to consume, share. I do want to take some time on this one, because this one, Steph, you were a little surprised by the last one. I was surprised by the numbers on this one. So we know that Gen Z is downloading a lot of content, whether that's video, audio, or otherwise. But when it comes to audio, where are they downloading content and why? And what kind of content? So actually I want to start with Sid on this, but just look at those numbers. 71% Spotify over iTunes. That's a pretty big number. 98% music, that's not a surprise. If there's a Gen Z or not listening to music, I want to see where they are. Raise your hand, please. But 46% podcasts. short form content, long form content. So Sid, I got to start with you on this because you launched your own Gen Z podcast series. You love podcasts. You're kind enough to be one of my only like 2 or 3 listeners to my podcast. So I appreciate that. Just talk about it overall, audio content, but I really want you to dive into podcasts here.
Okay, so podcasts are really awesome because the older group of Gen Zs are like still like in the 20-ish range, and we still have like a lot of younger kids. That's the 20-ish, maybe high school kids are the ones listening to the podcasts. So podcasts are similar to YouTube videos. They could be in anything that you're interested in. Spotify offers a lot of good podcasts. There's like one that's really funny with the comedian Nicole Byer. It's like, why won't anyone date me? Like that's a full podcast about it. But it could be anything from conspiracy theories to crime stories to business. It's like awesome, and it's really good because Gen Z really craves authenticity. And I talked with Mark about this, and when I started my podcast, it was for a final project. Like I didn't just like start it for fun. I was just like, I'm gonna be different and start a podcast because I was told I should create a blog. But when I have a blog, you're reading the words on a screen and you're not really seeing who's talking, who's telling you this story. But Gen Z craves this authenticity. When I create a podcast, you're listening to my voice, and I may not have like the best like audio voice, but you're still listening to my pitch and how fast I'm talking and how I'm interacting with the person that I'm talking with. And then podcasts are also awesome because you have the audio, but you could also record a video. And you can see how I'm interacting, you can see my eye contact, you can see how I'm moving my hands like I am right now. And that's really awesome. But with your listeners and the person who created the podcast, you create a sense of community with them. Like you don't know me, like you're listening to me speak probably every week, but you don't know me at all, you don't know anything really personally about me, but you feel this connection with me. You feel as if you know me because I'm a big part of your life. You listen to me talk on your commute home, or like, you know, if you're on the LX bus, or if you're getting ready in the morning. So that's awesome about podcasts. I love podcasts.
I want to follow up to that because I know we have a lot of brands in the audience. Are there any more and more brands are creating their own podcasts to again engage consumers? Are there any? You mentioned a lot of different podcasts. Are there any brands that they're producing that either you listen to or that you've discovered?
Chubby Swimwear has one. I don't really listen to like brands per se. I think that's really cool. I think that if a brand were to create an actual podcast, it won't just like be about like their like swimwear. Like
Right. It's gotta be
it would be about something else, like
backstories.
yeah, something cool.
Stories.
I listen to like a lot of Joe Rogan.
I love it.
He had one famous podcast once, about a year ago.
Yeah, but he has like a lot of.
He had a guy by the name of Elon Musk on it. Became one of
Oh yeah, that one where like he's like smoked a jet or something.
Yeah.
Like, but like
He has more than a couple listeners, I know.
yeah, well like those are because those are so unpredictable. Like they're literally sitting in the studio and like talking about like conspiracy theories, like random things, and you're like, I have no interest in this, but like I'm interested in this, so like, I don't even know what's going on.
Antonio or Steph, can you just talk about the preference of Spotify over iTunes and why? Do you mind?
Unfortunately, I'm an Apple Music girl. I get so much, like, everyone makes fun of me. They're like, grow up, how do you not have Spotify? And so I tried using Spotify. I was like, all right, I'm gonna be hip, I'm gonna be cool. So I got my cousin's account information, so she's been paying for it for me. So I'll find out I'm listening to Lana Del Rey, and all of a sudden Frank Sinatra comes on. I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm a little behind on that because apparently you can't share Spotify's. I personally like Apple Music because I like to keep my podcast and my music all in the same space. I've always had it, but I guess I'm not really on the Gen Z wave with that. I'm such an Apple Music girl. Do you use Spotify?
Spotify?
Well, I have a podcast comment that I
Okay, sure, please.
Sid was talking, but I read something on Twitter, and I thought this was really funny for our generation, and it was like, Gen Zers have a deep conversation, and then they're like, let's make a podcast. But I think that's super relevant, because like, you could just be talking about your dogs, and you're like, let's make a podcast about their dogs and what they like to eat and what they like to wear, and like, nobody's gonna care about that.
I would listen to that.
But as for Spotify, I use Spotify. I love it. The student discount is awesome. You get Hulu and Spotify for $5.
And Showtime.
And Showtime. And I think HBO now.
And so that's the tie between Spotify and Hulu and why those brands are resonating more with Gen Z.
Yeah.
So we talked about brands. I give Target, I hold Target, I don't go to Target, I don't shop at Target, I don't represent Target. I don't shop at all actually, but I give them a lot of credit. This is what brands need to be doing. It goes back to what we said at the beginning. If you're going to market to Gen Z, if you're going to want to engage Gen Z, well, don't go down the hall that is a traditional 30, 40, 50-year-old executive and say, let's come up with a Gen Z campaign. It's going to fall flat the moment you go to market with it. Create an incubator. These three alone are an incredible incubator. I bring it into the fold tomorrow and figure out what we can do, right? That's what Target did. I love that they did this. They brought together about 30 or so Gen Zers from across the country who all had these various interests in fashion and music and fitness and sports and art, and picked their brains and said, what kind of campaigns would you put in the market? What kind of products would you introduce? Why do more Gen Zers prefer Spotify over Apple? Those kinds of things. So, and I'll hold it to the end, but if I'm a brand, even if I'm an agency, it goes back to the CEO at the beginning. Tomorrow, or wait till Monday, I create an incubator. It's just a fancy name for it. Let's get a bunch of Gen Zers in the room and let's let them come up with the content. Let's let them come up with the campaign. So I give Target a lot of credit. Whether you like American Eagle or not, doesn't matter. They want to engage Gen Zers, so they handed over their creative to Gen Zers. Of course, there's agency still involved, but they said, let's have Gen Zers create the advertising, the marketing, the content. Yes, there's ownership by the agency or the internal agency, but again, they're handing over the playbook to Gen Z and saying, you come up with what's going to resonate for us as we're trying to engage this consumer segment. You talked about the NBA Finals, perfect segue. I know you didn't even see this slide. But sports media companies, sports leagues. I spent yesterday speaking to professional hockey team owners, general managers, and their team staffs. They realize they've got to do things differently. They've got to challenge the status quo. They've got to rip up what they used to do when it comes to Gen Z. And I made sure I prefaced that when I spoke to the sports teams yesterday. They've got a lot of consumer segments, just like many brands do, right? So they can't just focus on Gen Z, but if they're going to focus on Gen Z, and they need to, they've got to do things differently, like even ESPN, who, again, tested, and that's a big word I like to use. Let's test and learn. Let's try some things and see how they work. Let's see what the results are. So they tested throughout the NBA playoffs, because folks like Sid were not watching the NBA playoffs, so they said, let's create some sort of alternate way that we might engage Sid to watch the playoffs in a non-traditional way, because she wasn't going to tune into ABC to watch the playoffs. She doesn't even know what ABC is, meaning she could care less about ABC. But maybe we can create something on a different channel that she will turn to, because it's not traditional.
Can I interject?
Yes, please. Just raise your hand next time.
All right, Professor.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any of you guys know, but like the Fire Festival was like such a big deal. On Instagram, they had all these influencers and models just post a single orange tile as a post, and then everyone was like, I need to go to the Fire Festival. So I go to Rutgers, and I will probably get in trouble for saying this, but just don't tell me that.
Don't tweet this out.
Please don't live tweet this. We kind of have like a little bit of an issue with getting students to come to the football games. And it's like a very large issue. So Rutgers decided to embody the Fire Festival and post a single red tile to get students to like have awareness, like that we actually have sports teams here.
And it has nothing to do with our record. Our football team's great.
I really love the football team, but go to every single game. But now the students are seeing this and people that weren't even I was reached out to put this on my story. So I put it on my story, but now people I follow that I know weren't even discussed in this, where they were putting their red tile on their story too. So now it's this entire chain of, I think every single story I looked at on Instagram was a red tile. And now everyone knew that we had sports and you should buy a season ticket to the football game. So even breaking out sports like that and just doing something super simple by posting a story, that's how, is that a question? Yes. Oh, okay.
I lost it.
But just even doing something simple like that, that's how you can really engage Gen Z with something like sports.
I thought it was really interesting that you used something that was Rutgers used something that was a complete failure.
Well, actually, if you think about it, like the Fire Festival itself, like if you saw the documentary, like that was a complete failure. Like the festival was a failure. Their Instagram campaign was not a failure.
I feel like if Rutgers was like, hey, Kendall Jenner's gonna be at the game, then there would be a problem if she didn't show up. But they were just like, here's a red child.
I mean, football season has not started yet. Like fingers crossed that, like, because now this happened during the spring game, so now people got like free T-shirts, like, you know, the birthplace of college football.
I think it worked in the sense of generating social media content. Like I saw, like you said, I saw people that had no idea what the red block meant, but they shared it. It was kind of like a domino effect. Everyone was like, I don't know what this is, but I want to be a part of it and want to make sure my name's part of it. So from that standpoint, we'll see next year.
Yeah, it was a film.
It was a problem.
I thought you were going to say something else. I thought you were going to say the team is not playing so well, so they launched a beer festival last year.
Oh, well, wait, but
Another one.
And that went over very
We're
well.
trying everything.
There's even brands out there that again are creating product lines and new extensions specifically again targeting Gen Z. So again, it's just a shift, a mind shift. Take something maybe we've been doing to reach other consumer segments and how can this apply to Gen Z? But again, we need to tap into our Gen Z incubator, our Gen Z advocates, our Gen Z consumers to truly see, will this resonate or is this going to fall flat? Even Kellogg's, a traditional brand, again, engaging Gen Zers to launch a cereal specifically for Gen Zers. And I thought this was great. You know, Apple obviously is known for innovation and transformation, and at some point, you know, even the credit card category already is going to transform to the point where, again, Gen Zers are going to look beyond a Visa, a MasterCard, an American Express for other ways to handle payments. And so Apple realizes that, and they've already created a product. And what I loved about this is, again, the things that they talk about here. Younger consumers will value convenience, which goes back to that original idea of convenience and efficiency. And again, a new and non-traditional way that the traditional traditional credit card is doing. So, you guys have been dropping all these Gen Z slang, right? And I love that you kept, you know, working that in just naturally. Usually when I start these presentations, I usually start and say, you know, today we're going to spill the tea on Gen Z. We're going to find out what's dope, so that we can all go back and be woke. And if you love what I say or any of my expert panelists say, later you can peep my tweet. And of course they laugh at me, but when these guys say it, it just comes out naturally. So let's talk about it. We've already talked about Instagrammable experiences, Instagrammable moments. Again, if you're a brand, you've got to think this way. And I think Stephanie said earlier, you know, Refinery 29 and other experiences where now brands, I use MasterCard as an example. For years, MasterCard sponsored lots and lots and lots of sports events. World Cup, NHL, MLB, PGA. And they still do some of that. But now they're putting their money into sponsoring things like Refinery 29's 29 Rooms because, as Sid and Antonio and Steph said, that's where they're gravitating to. They're looking for those traveling experiences that they can, again, participate in, shoot content, share, and as I like to say, brag a little bit. I was here today. You weren't, I was. You want to just talk about this? I know we talked earlier about it, but again, just the idea of if you were a brand, any brand, doesn't matter, but the idea of creating these experiences that invites you to participate, where traditional advertising from a brand is going to go, you know, you're blind.
I mean, for 29 Rooms, I think it's awesome because, and there's also another one called Nightmare Machine or Dream Machine, which is Nightmare Machines during Halloween. They make it all spooky and crazy and like weird and uncomfortable, which people pay money for. And Dream Machine is like nice and like very like, but they create these experiences where you only pay $20 and then you can take a ton of pictures in like 20 different rooms, and then you have 20 different pictures for your feed that never repeat because people don't like repeating on their feed. They just like to be able to post. So you're able to like kind of travel around without paying the money to travel. You're probably just paying a $15 train ticket to New York and, you know, spending like 2 hours in these rooms, and you're allowed to spend as much time as you want to and take as many pictures as you want to and like bring your friends, and it's a lot of fun because you can share the experience with your friends and then so many people online. So I think that's really cool, and you're not spending much money, and I think that's like a big key, because like people for these things will want to spend money if they know it's going to be good, that kind of thing. Like if they've seen pictures and stuff like that, yeah.
Instagram stories, we touched on it earlier, but can we just dive in a little bit more again about Instagram stories? Just again, why is Gen Z gravitate so much to it?
We're really quick. We like things fast, and we like to show people what we're doing quickly, and so easily accessible. Just to snap a picture, like I'm drinking like a Rook coffee. I post a picture of it on my story. People know I'm fancy and I drink Rook coffee. Because some things like aren't worthy enough to be like actually posted in my feed. Like
Dunkin' goes on Snapchat.
Yeah, Dunkin' Snapchat, Rook on Instagram, me at a party or something on my feed. Like there are levels.
I also think that Instagram gives you a wider range of people. I would say everyone has a larger following on Instagram rather Snapchat. Snapchat's more private as well. You have privacy mode, only your friends can see it. Instagram, you have the ability that anyone can watch your story. I mean, granted if you're public or not. But it just has a wider range of people you can reach to. And I believe they give you more filters, more fonts. So it gives you more creative control than Snapchat does. And I believe the geotags is a huge thing. Snapchat, that's very restricted, but Instagram, there's a wide range of locations that you can tag and be like, hey, look where I am.
I mean, GIFs are really fun too.
Super fun. It's funny because people who use Snapchat filters save the video and then post it on their Instagram story. So they're using 2 apps to do one thing.
I want to get to the GIFs and the emojis in a second, but the other thing just to think about, and I won't spend too much time on this, but things like Fortnite and Twitch are not just about video game playing anymore. They've become communities. They've become social media platforms on their own. And as a marketer, you've got to think that way. This is where members of Gen Z are going to, again, engage, have a community, share content, view content. There you go, Sid. So Gen Z, again, here's the key on this, and these guys obviously will validate this. Yes, Gen Z has their own language. The fact is, Antonio and I created the book last year. We created right in the front of the book this whole dictionary of Gen Z terms, because every interview we did, they were just dropping these terms on us. Of course, Antonio understood every one of them. I had to ask, can you give me the definition of that term? And then as we produced and published the book, I had to go back to Antonio 10 times and say, can you review every single term here and make sure I'm not screwing it up? So she had tons of edits, because I wasn't even interpreting it the way they were explaining it to me.
Yeah, I never thought I'd come into work and my boss being like, what does dope mean?
Quick speed round on this. Give me it doesn't have to be one of these terms. You've already given us some terms. Just any Gen Z term out there that you either use regularly.
What's the wave? What's the wave tonight? Park rounds?
I like the phrase OD. It's like when someone's doing too much. You're like, oh, you're really ODing right now. Like, don't even do that.
I'm blanking. I'm not.
Is that a term, blanking?
Yeah, there we go.
FOMO. I feel like every day. I'm like, oh my god.
That's old though, isn't it?
It is older, but it still uses all the time.
I say
got it.
roast a lot. I go, I'm gonna roast you.
You guys know this. I just bring this up here because, again, more from from a marketing standpoint, but also for those who hire Gen Zers as new employees. Capital One, I do a lot of work with them. Internally, they've done away with email internally. All internal communication now, the preferred choice is texting. Right?
Slack. Yeah, Slack.
Slack went public yesterday, right? And Slack, when they went public yesterday, they said, email, as we know, will be extinct in 10 years. I would agree. Any of you guys, do any of you email, other than when I email you? 2, they get emails from me and they know they have to respond. But other than that, 1, you email, or do most of your emails, you just kind of don't really look at those?
There's a question.
If you market your business and you're doing it through text, and I've done this where I've done content through text, What about a record? You don't
No,
have a record.
agreed.
What do you do?
Agreed. Well, I think again, I think there's, at least what I'm saying right now, especially large corporations, if it's getting decisions, getting answers, getting replies quickly, right, through Slack, through text, if it's contracts, agreements, formal documents and things, and at the end of the day, you're still going to have to use email to share some of those things. So I think we're on 2 tracks now. It'll just be interesting to see where does it go over the next 10 years.
Slack is really dynamic because it has like a document viewer. It has all those
Yeah.
things that you can save. You could message people, and then you can like look up hashtags and like be in a little group with like a hashtag if you wanted to be in one. Yeah.
We're going to speed through a few slides because I just did some. Again, Gen Z does not use the F word. At least this F word. The only time that Antonio and Sid and Steph post is when Grandma and Grandpa says, "We haven't seen you, we haven't heard from you, send me a photo, send me something, we miss you."
Facebook's like the LinkedIn of social media. You put all your nice pictures at college with your friends, in the library, your family's like they're doing great. You want to see how they're really doing, go on their Instagram.
And then as you said earlier, you know, and this was part of the research that we did last week, that Steph did last week, again, can't get enough of, right? Memes and bitmojis and emojis, but then we wanted to put a number against that. So it was interesting to see when we surveyed Gen Zers last week that memes at 35%, and all pretty close, emojis at 33%, GIFs at 24%, and we even got that thing called TikTok down there, which we surveyed specifically about TikTok, and the numbers were pretty good. I think we're up to about 25%. The question was basically, in the last year, have you started using TikTok? And I think we're in the 20% or so. Any just commentary real quickly?
I feel like TikTok is for like younger. Like if you're like grown and like you use TikTok, I feel like that's kind of weird. Like you should probably not do that. But like I know like I teach dance to younger kids and they all, "Miss Sydney, can you get my TikTok?" I'm like, no, not recording me. But like they
So
all
what age
love
are you
it.
talking? Because they're young Gen Zers, 9, 10, 11?
Yeah, I teach ages 4 to 18.
Despite all this, though, a digital detox is becoming popular, is becoming prevalent. When we conducted our survey, our interviews last year around the book, I remember a junior at the University of Delaware, she goes, "I just one day needed to stop, and I needed to enjoy life and participate in life." She goes, "That day turned into a week, that week turned into a month." And she still was on this digital detox. So despite everything we're talking about today, once in a while you do have to take a hiatus. Yes, please, Jen.
So I did that. I had like a series of very unfortunate events happen to me, and I was like, I can't be on social media. Like this sucks because I'm seeing all these people having such fun, and I'm like home upset about things. I actually did a detox for about 6 months. So I didn't go on social media at all. I only have my email. People that wanted to talk to me texted me. I did video chat. I was barely on my phone, and I have wanted to do that ever since. But social media is such a big part of the world that I feel like I can't be away from it too long. But that 6 months, I experienced so much. I would go out and do spontaneous things. I read the newspaper.
Wow. I didn't know that existed.
I would read magazines and I used to read the newspaper when I was younger, but then I stopped because everything was on my phone, and I started going back to traditional ways, and I forgot what a book felt like because I was reading on my phone, and it's different when you kind of step away from a phone for a while and technology, because you don't realize how immersed you are until you're away from it. The first week I was like, oh, well, I just got off my phone, it's been 5 minutes, I need to go back on my phone, I'm bored. And it's I see this so often with people my age where they put their phone down or they'll close an app like Twitter and then they'll just open Twitter again. And then they're like, wait, I just closed that. Yeah.
You just want to throw it across the room.
Yeah, because nothing's happening, and you're like, why isn't anything happening? So I think this is becoming slowly more common, but it's not as extreme as I went.
With that said, though, what I noticed about, I had a friend that had done a detox. She got rid of Instagram, I believe, for a year, Twitter, everything, and what she noticed, she said, I almost felt out of the loop, and not necessarily from a social standpoint, but she was like, oh, I didn't know that happened, or what did Kylie Jenner's pregnant, or because we don't watch traditional TV, so when we cut out our phones, we're kind of almost ignorant to everything. And it almost like makes you seem out of loop. She was like, I felt like confused in so many situations. I'm like, they're talking about memes and they're talking about the Kardashians, and she was like, I just felt out of it. She was so, I think there's a balance. I mean, when you're with your family, you're at dinner, like put it away, but sometimes I'm like, all right, let me get my updates on my news app or this and that, and just kind of keep up with, you know, what's happening in marketing and everything. So I think it's important to have a healthy balance between the two.
I feel like a lot of times though, like Gen Z, we put a lot out there, like maybe too much. So like if people go through like a very traumatic or private issue, they feel the need to like just cut everything off. So like, for example, I knew this girl who posted all the time, Instagram, this is me, my boyfriend, I moved to California for him, he's on the Chargers, like da-da-da-da-da, and then he broke up with her. And then she went MIA. She was gone. Because now she has her life is just like displayed out there for the entire world to see. She had a big following, and now it's like, I can't live up to that standard anymore. I can't live up to my Instagram standard, so she just like went missing for like 2 months.
I know we're up against the clock, so I'm going to run through the last couple slides because I'm sure there's going to be a few more questions. We've been last week surveyed about ASMR. Yeah, I would say polarizing at best, right? Some folks like it, some folks don't like it, even though...
I'm actually going to create a podcast speaking in ASMR about ASMR.
I can't wait to listen. I can't wait to listen. We talked about this earlier. Again, entrepreneurial spirit. If you want to engage Gen Z, give them a chance to flex those muscles, flex that entrepreneurial spirit. And so we talked earlier in the presentation, I want to leave you with a handful of things that you could apply today. Again, whether you're an agency to your next campaign, whether you're a brand to your next campaign. I'll run through these real quickly, so again, we have time for a couple of questions. So first and foremost, these guys said it best. By the way, you guys, tremendous. I mean, you guys gave all the credibility to this because you brought it to life. But that's their media mix. That's their media mix. Again, half jokingly, there are no newspapers up there. There is no ABC up there. There is no CBS up there. That's the media mix. So if I'm going to create campaigns and create media around Gen Z, I need to be thinking about these channels. And the channels vary, right? Yeah, we've talked Instagram and Instagram and Instagram, but even I put up 29 rooms, you're finding 29 rooms, as a channel. It's a non-traditional channel, but it is a channel. Okay, so that's first and foremost to think that way. Secondly, and I know we've hit this a few times with Target, but even in pro sports, the NHL created their own Gen Z incubator about a month or two ago. The first sports league to do so. I think every brand, every company, every agency should create a Gen Z incubator. And again, an incubator is a fancy name for, let's get 3, 4, 5 Gen Zers in a room. Let's come up with a cool idea, or 2 or 3 or 4. We hit this a lot, right? Assets and access. Again, if you're a brand or an agency representing a brand, think of all the cool stuff you have that potentially these guys may want to share. When I talked to the hockey teams yesterday, I said, think of every broken stick hockey stick. You might throw it in the garbage. Well, to a Gen Zer, that could be a cool thing that they could, again, share. So think of every asset, every access, every unique thing that as a brand or an agency representing a brand you have that potentially can become an Instagrammable moment or Instagrammable experience.
I just quickly
Yes.
had a story that I just remembered. So I work around Columbus Circle right now, and when Detective Pikachu was coming out, they literally sent out a guy in a Pikachu costume just running around New York. And it was so simple, probably super cheap, but they just paid this guy to run around in a Pikachu costume. And everybody had their phones out. He wouldn't stop to take pictures. He would just like stare at you if you tried to talk to him. And it was super weird, but like everybody was asking questions and it just said Detective Pikachu on the back. And I was like, this is great. So,
An Instagrammable
yeah.
moment.
Just another night in New York.
Yeah.
Early on, again, we talked about, again, it's all about digital. Right? Here's an example from the Jordan brand, but it's all about digital. So again, making not just products, but experiences, again, accessible. You talked about that stuff earlier, right? Hop on the train, go to New York, I'm at this cool event. Accessible, convenient, fast in the media. We didn't get into it too much here, but there was a lot of Kardashian speak, more than I really wanted, but that's all right. But the idea that the greatest influencers of Gen Z are fellow Gen Zers. These are the greatest influencers. right? So it's the nano influencers. That's who influences them the most. That's who they influence the most, not individuals with millions and millions and millions of followers. Yesterday we talked about those individuals, and yes, we may follow those, but it's our immediate circle, it's our community of Gen Zers who influence us and who we influence the most. So again, the nano influencers. And then we talked about this earlier, but the idea if you're a brand or working for a brand, start thinking about, again, the idea of purpose over profit. This was a great week this week. The Yankees celebrated their 10th anniversary of Hope Week. PR director who I know really well created that 10 years ago. Very simple concept. We do a lot of things in the community, but let's wrap it around something. They wrapped it around this thing called Hope Week. Well, the Yankees at the end of the day are a baseball team, but they should stand for much more than just being a baseball team, right? They have to have a purpose more than just being a baseball team. So this week in particular, when they had Hope Week for the 10th anniversary, it showed that we stand for more than that. We want to be in our communities. We want to help others. We want to help organizations and help charities. And I think every brand starting in 2019 and 2020 has to think that way. And again, I talked about Jersey Mike's earlier. They have set the example, at least here locally, of brands that are doing that. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think we should, if we have a few minutes, Chris, okay, so why don't we get a few questions in while we can, so I'm sure the panel.
So I have a lot of brands or companies that do not market towards Gen Zers, and I kind of like to follow. Well, just all right. Hi. Did you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
All right. So I kind of also follow the whole thing of if it's not broken, don't fix it. What would your advice be for a social media manager who is trying to, be smart with content creation for these companies that Gen Zers aren't buying their products, but the other generations definitely are? Do you have any suggestions on how to do that differently still?
Not every brand has the Gen Z demographic.
Right.
Like you wouldn't advertise assisted living to us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you do have to take into consideration that we're still growing. So for the next 15 years, we're probably going to be the demographic. So eventually, we're going to be in that target group. So if you're going to have to target people that are older, maybe stick to Facebook. But
Right. We'll try something.
definitely brace yourselves because we're coming.
Right.
I mean, I think you could, a cheap way to gauge it is asking questions. We love giving our opinion. We will tell you our opinion without you asking for an opinion. If you ask a question, we'll pick me, I'll tell you how I feel about things. So I think just asking questions and seeing what people think, and then by that you can see what your audience is because you'll see who's answering, and then you can kind of figure out a way to change it because you get the opinion of the people that are already following you, so you're trying to figure out the opinion of people that aren't. Right. Yeah.
And then just one more question I had earlier. Going back to the Apple Music and Spotify, do you think that now that's why Apple Music is splitting up iTunes, maybe to compete with Spotify?
I don't think it's going to pose as much as of a competition. I mean, what do you guys think? I personally think Spotify is dominating and it's going to continue to dominate regardless of what Apple Music does at this point.
I think the only time someone actually is so supportive for Apple Music is if they just do it for the cloud. They're like, oh yeah, you're broke, I use Apple Music. But I have a bundle of Hulu and Showtime with my $4 Spotify account.
I mean, I know there was one month where Apple Music had an insane subscription rise, but that was because Beyonce's album was only available on Tidal and Apple Music, so everyone was like, I gotta subscribe to listen to the album. But nobody stayed subscribed. They all switched to Spotify, or stayed with Spotify originally.
I feel like the only reason I'm still with Apple Music is because it's still connected to my parents' credit card and they don't realize it. I think the day that they realize that they're still getting charged $10 a month and it's not them is when I'll switch over to Spotify.
You get some more questions in?
Is this because of the money? Is that the bottom line? Is this because, Apple charges more?
I think that Spotify is just more personalized. It gives more options. It takes my my listening history, creates a nice little album for me. So I have like
curated playlists
Yeah,
every
yeah.
day, 6 of them
every single day.
You pay what Apple charges and stay responsible.
No, I like free subscriptions.
I mean, even when I'm not a student, because they're gonna ask me, I think like in a year, if I'm still a student, I might say I am, even though I won't be. But
I'm still a student.
I'm a student at heart, always. I think I might just say like, I think it's like $7.99, honestly. So like, why am I gonna pay $10 when I have this thing that's personalizing everything for me?
I think the other key there too is, which we alluded to earlier, is the strategic partnerships they formed. Again, so you're offering, you're delivering greater value, but you're offering, again, other brands like Hulu as part of that.
How does Twitter fall into this? All of you mentioned it, but it was never put up. Sorry. How does Twitter fall into all this? Each one of you mentioned it, but it wasn't up on any of the brands that you are engaging.
I would say back in the day, I used to be like an avid tweeter.
When she was much younger.
When I was much younger. But now, like, I think Twitter is like dependent, like, they always like, there's a joke on Twitter, like you could be your true self on Twitter. So I think like, if I saw something like political, I would never tweet something political, but I would retweet something that's political. But like, I don't want to have an argument with you on Twitter.
Twitter is just like a weird world.
It's interesting. Growing, I would say in high school, everyone used Twitter. I mean, we would tweet pictures, we would tweet inside jokes, we would subtweet. You guys all know subtweets. So I feel like every day you're tweeting, you know what's going on. We tweet addresses, we tweet parties, we would tweet funny jokes. Now, and I don't know if it's necessarily because I'm getting older or Twitter is actually transitioning, but what I've noticed is Twitter's now less speaking and more retweeting. So it's more sharing, it's more generating content. And I think it's because we also have that voice from Snapchat now. Now people Snapchatting those pictures that they once tweeted, or they're posting videos of what they once said they were doing. So I'm not positive if it's necessarily, again, the transition of me getting older and my audience growing older, or it's, I think Twitter's starting to become, retweet sports highlights, retweet, I'm constantly, all my sports is on Twitter, everything. I have Bleacher Report, ESPN, everything, and that's where I'm getting my clips, the slam dunk, the highlights from the US team, So I don't really see Twitter being a voice as much as it is a generation, a form of sharing. So, I don't know if you guys see.
I find Twitter hilarious. I get all my memes from there because it's just a constant stream of like what is going on. Because I feel like there are just so many communities and you can like dip into the communities you want to be in without actually like being involved in it. And I'm heavily into the beauty community, but like I can be in tech or like streamers or like retweet, but like I don't have to like stay there, if that makes sense, or like keep up with it, because if you go into like the replies, everybody will be explaining what's happening as it's going on. And I think that's so funny because you just never have to be aware of what's going on because other people will tell you what's going on.
And from a marketing perspective, recently Wendy's, Chance the Rapper tweeted about Wendy's spicy chicken nuggets. We all wanted them back, but we needed Chance to speak for her. So Chance took the opportunity. He was like, I'm gonna go on my Twitter handle, tweet at Wendy's, and hope for these spicy nuggets. Wendy's, like we were saying, Wendy's knows how to market Gen Z. They're excellent with it. So they shared his tweet and said, if we get
200,000.
Was it 200,000 retweets, we'll bring them back. I mean, it didn't even take 24 hours. They were back. I don't think they're on the menu yet. Does anyone know the status of the nuggets?
Might take a little while.
But things enough to those who wait. But that was an effective way from a marketing standpoint. Wendy's they were watching, they were waiting for that. They saw the opportunity and they pounced on it right away, and that generated so much. But what I noticed is a lot of stuff like Twitter, they'll see tweets, screenshots will come up on BuzzFeed, and then that'll come up on Instagram, which will come up on Facebook. So I wouldn't necessarily say Twitter's the best place to market, but if it's something effective, it'll be generated on all social media panels.
Hey Mark, I think we have time for one more
Let's
question.
go one more.
Hi, I have a couple of clients in the entertainment industry that early on bought followers, got the tick, and that kind of like propelled them now to influencers. Now I have other clients that are wanting to do the same thing, but I don't know if Fuelgram and Telegram and all those kind of like groups that will, if you comment, they'll comment back and all that kind of reciprocity that goes on with it. Do any of you know anything about that and if it still works or not?
Like commenting.
Yeah, I know you can like buy followers, you can buy the tick, the verified tick. You can also be groups in Telegram where if you're like in the art world, you know, you'll comment on 20 people's different accounts and then they'll comment back. So you get those comments that generates like more followers.
The thing about that is if people want to dig deep enough, they're gonna find out that, like, if you get popular enough, they'll figure out that you bought followers or comments or like that kind of thing. So I think it's like it's like a dangerous line where you can either do it and it'll be really great and successful, or you'll do it, you'll get big, and then people will be like, oh wait, like 7,000 of these followers are bought or bots kind of thing. And a lot of influencers come into this problem where they have 200,000 followers, let's say, but 40,000 of those are bought, and people start realizing it, and then like suddenly they're losing all their followers. So I think it's like a really weird line that you kind of have to figure out if it's gonna work or not.
But I would really love if I commented on something that the brand would comment back.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be left on red.
Yeah. Or just like a like, because then it's like, oh, you saw it, but.
Yeah, I noticed Brooke Coffee is actually really good with that. Brooke always likes your comment, always comments back. I mean, Brooke's a great friend, we all know that, especially around here. But that's something you like. It's like, wow, they're listening, they're seeing this. So that's a big.
Then it creates the relationship that's like not really a relationship, but like a relationship.
I think now we're gonna wrap up because I know we're up against.
What's your podcast name?
It's
Hey.
it's like in the works right now. Like, do I really want to get
Yeah.
You know, find me after this and I'll talk to you one-on-one.
They're gonna be here all day. They'll be working.
I'll talk to you after this.
Guys, thank you very, very much. We hope we got the day off to a great start.